On this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, me and Trevor shake things up a little bit and talk about some local bands that we discovered online. We're going to talk about a band called Interpersonal and another one called Pure Bliss. Thanks for jumping on, and let's open this pit up.
Somebody hit somebody!
Welcome to this episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast. I'm Kyle. I almost said I'm Trevor. I'm Kyle, and I am here with Trevor. So what's up, man?
Not much, man. It was a good week. It was a little bit chilly. We got some snow finally here in Utah. So we had the kids out front making little snowmen, and my middle child had her friends come and build her a snow throne and then just sat there and like threw snowballs at them while they were doing it. So yeah,
It's pretty funny.
it was awesome.
Not the snow part, because that sounds terrible. So, although it's cold here, it's like 50 degrees today.
Oh, boo-hoo, man.
That's terrible. So, what you been up to? What music you been listening to?
You know, this week we got the drop. Was that this week that we got the drop from Zabalba?
I think it was last week.
You're probably right. But when this episode is being recorded, I don't think we talked about this yet. I think we talked about it on the Story So Far episode. But yeah, I've been listening to actually a lot of like heavy beatdown hardcore because of the Zabalba release. And then just a couple other heavier bands that I just hadn't gotten around to in a minute. So I've had a lot of just heavy stuff on. What about you?
Yeah. Mostly Christmas music.
Yeah, it sucks.
That's awesome.
And for anyone who didn't listen, you can go hear why that's such a terrible take on
No, it's a great take.
that Christmas episode we just did.
Christmas music is great. Now listen to a lot of. So I'm a big fan of Crime in Stereo, and they released that new album like a couple months ago. And because we always listen to all this crap on the podcast, I didn't really get a chance to like really sit down and listen to it. So I listened to a lot of that this weekend.
Yeah.
It's
The
a dang
one-
good album.
The one other thing, I went back to like, I have such an issue with this because I sit here and I complain that there's too many genres, but it's because I want to put things in their rightful order. I have like such like an OCD personality that I hate not being able to define something. So we've been texting back and forth about a couple of bands, and I'm like, who do they sound like? What buckets do they fall in? So like I just went down the rabbit hole and I was listening to like old like emo rock kind of bands. So like Halifax. I listened to a
Okay.
bunch of Halifax this week. I listened to who were some of the other ones? Hidden in Plain View. I listened to those guys. So kind of that post-hardcore vein, emo
Yeah.
rock vein. There was one other one that I kind of got onto that I can't remember right now either. But yeah, just trying to group things together. My brain is just like, I have to put it somewhere. And so like I was trying to find stuff that sounded like them. But
That's kind of fun though, to play the like random genres and just go down rabbit holes.
yeah,
You know?
what genre is this?
Yeah, I do that every now and then I'll try to find like as many bands of it as I can. So,
You missed my Christmas joke. What genre is this? Instead of what child is this?
oh, I did miss that. And
Come on, man. You're the Christmas guy. But yeah, no, so I don't know. Because I was texting you guys about it and like trying to group different bands and different things. And like you just can't anymore. And it makes me so mad.
and I don't really care because I don't care. I know you care. I don't care. If it sounds good, I'll listen to it. We threw on some Teddy Swims
Okay.
this weekend because he's super good. We actually turned it on because we were in kind of a pop mood after watching the Trolls movie. But
Nice.
um,
Did you
we'll
ever
get to
hear
that.
his first band?
No.
Wild Heart, I think is what they were called.
Okay.
If you haven't listened to this, go listen to this. It's freaking legit. They've got only, I think, 4 songs, maybe only 3, but Lonely and Seeing It Through are phenomenal songs. Like I'll listen to those guys all the time. He so he comes from kind of that post-hardcore scene, and I think this was the Woe Is Me guys who did it with him
Okay,
for this release.
interesting.
It's super interesting, but it's not in that vein at all. Don't go listen to it if you're looking for post-hardcore. That's not what it is. It's just
No, that's fine.
it's cool stuff.
Yeah,
So it's just like indie rock kind of thing.
yeah, it's dope.
But
I like that.
yeah, check that out.
Yeah. What about shows? I know you said you're going to Zabalba tomorrow, isn't it? Well,
Yeah,
we're
the
recording
11th.
this tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
okay.
12-11. I'll be hitting up Zabalba. And then I think that Josh was at Pain of Truth last night. That looks pretty sick.
Yeah.
There's starting to be some cool pop-up venues here in Salt Lake. Some big open space. So shows are looking fun right now.
Yeah. It kind of sucks down here because the only place that they really do those types of hardcore shows is in this town called Denton, which is like an hour and 15 minutes from me.
Just because like that's where the venue space is, or like why?
So University of North Texas is up there. It's kind of a more hipstery type town. More younger people live there that would be into this kind of music. So,
Hipsters are into hardcore.
I mean, kind of though. Like, dude, how many like coffee shops you walk into or like record stores? Like, there's this store in Denton that is like old books and vinyls and stuff, and they've got a wall plastered with metal shows and hardcore shows. And so, yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. I think that you're
But
defining hipster wrong though by saying that.
I don't. Okay, I guess that's the boomer in me. I guess I don't know how else to define it, but it's just like a youthful college town.
There you go.
UNT's more of like an artsy college too. It's not like a very big everyone goes to. It's more of like an artsy-ish type college. So that stuff does attract this type of music,
So what you're saying is Jeff Rickley needs to go buy a house up there and start throwing some basement shows.
Exactly.
Even though there's no basements in Texas.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on up there. So I'm gonna make it out there. Like I think when Incendiary comes, when they play in March out here, I'm gonna drive up and go see them. But like 2.5 hours.
That's a long ways
in the car for. Yeah, I mean I'll do it, but it's got to be the right show. So
yeah, no, I got you. I'm pretty stoked. We're gonna see how Zabalba goes. They haven't been here. I think they said in 10 years. So I expect a pretty good turnout for that. And that new release it's heavy. So I saw videos of their Arizona show and it looked wild. So
I saw a couple clips that people are like, man, this is a flashback to like 2009 or 2007. I was like, that's dope.
And like they posted it, they were like Arizona, it was like a straight prison riot. Like that's what so I think that there's gonna be kids going pretty hard for this.
Sweet. That'll be
cool.
It'll
be fun.
I don't think I got any shows in December. Honestly, I'm just kind of playing it pretty low key. I think one of my Christmas presents is going to be tickets to the Neck Deep and Drain show.
Yeah.
So,
gosh dang. I want to go to that so bad.
You're just a quick flight down here, man.
I know. But we're sitting here, we're talking about like LDB Fest and things like that. It's like, where do you spend your money? Like what do you do? Where do you spend your money? How do you make it to all this stuff? The answer is just everything goes through Salt Lake. Screw y'all. Like everything comes through Salt Lake.
You need touring festivals again. I think you said it before. We need touring festivals again.
Exactly.
So one thing that, for those listening, one thing that me and Trevor had been talking about doing for a while that we finally are getting around to is we wanted to start talking about some of the kind of local, not necessarily to us, but local bands in different areas and, discovering kind of new, smaller bands and trying to help them out a little bit. So that's what this new segment's going to be.
Well, there's that. And then part of what we talked about is like, all we really knew was the Salt Lake scene. Yeah. We didn't really know much else. And then you moved to Texas and I'd say, do you really even know the Dallas scene at this point? Kind of thing. Like you're still learning it. So a lot of this comes down to what are these other local scenes like? I'm super curious, right? And I'd love to hear more and learn more and see like what are the similarities, what are the differences, and that's a lot driving what we're doing here.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands out there. There's a lot of cool bands out there, and sometimes it just you got to be heard, you know. And so we live in our own little bubbles, and it's cool to find, you know, smaller, more local bands that maybe not don't get the same exposure, but that rip. And we're going to talk about a couple of them today. So,
Yeah.
who do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hit them up.
Cool. So, the band that I found that wanted to talk about was a band called Interpersonal. So, they are located out of St. Louis, Missouri. And I think they've been a band for around, I don't know how many years that is. I think around 2019 is when they started because they got a bunch of videos and stuff of when they were doing things through like COVID.
Cool.
So they would have
Yep.
started their band pre-COVID, and you know it'll be interesting to hear how kind of how that went for a lot of these bands starting out, how they dealt with COVID and what that affected. But yeah, they followed us on social media, so shout out to them because that's dope. And when they followed us, I just clicked on them, started listening to them, instantly liked it, instantly thought it was good music. So, did you got a chance to listen to them? What are some of the like first thoughts on them?
So this is the band that I was like, I've got to categorize them somehow. Because the band we're going to talk about,
Okay,
like, it's very easily categorizable, right? This is the
yeah,
band where I was like, how am I going to put these into something? And I think when we were talking about it, this is the band where it was, this is what I started listening to. Because it's clean singing, not very many screams. I think they have a little bit of screaming off their first EP, which is just a self-titled Interpersonal. But for the most part, it's clean singing. It's in the vein of a little bit of hardcore, but they've got pop punk, but they've got some emo rock.
yeah,
It's hard. It's hard to put it in a basket.
yeah,
And so I was like, who would I want to see him on tour with? Like that's what I like started rolling through my head. And so initial thoughts is we just had the Armor for Sleep 20-year anniversary roll through. I'm like, yeah, I could have seen these guys opening for the Armor for Sleep show.
right,
Like I think that would have been a cool bill for them to have been on. It's solid. Between their two EPs, they did switch vocalists, and I think they just picked up a new vocalist as well. And I know that they have new music that they're working on currently. So I think that we're going to get some 2024, probably early 2024 music from these guys. But it's good, man.
yeah,
Like it's a good, like I said, clean singing, easy to listen to. It's what I really enjoy it. I enjoy their sound.
yeah. So after like I started listening to them, I did a little digging more into kind of the St. Louis scene, and there's like really good bands out of St. Louis. So there's a larger band that I know they've played with, and it's a band that I really liked and didn't even know they were from St. Louis until I started researching Interpersonal more. But have you ever heard of Squint?
No.
Okay, you need to go listen to Squint. They're so good.
Okay.
But it's a very unique sound. It's not like an in your face hardcore. It's not a super punk sounding hardcore. It's a really unique, different sounding type of hardcore. It's not a full scream. It's not a full sing. It's kind of that in between. Honestly, it's a little heavier and it's a little more experimental than Military Gun is. That's what Squint sounds like. It's dope.
Awesome.
So when
Okay.
I heard them, I was like, oh, they're from St. Louis. Like that's sick. And then I started finding a couple other bands. Like a band that I'm a big fan of is called Time and Pressure, also from St. Louis. They're a little bigger. Unfortunately, they're not making music anymore. I think one of their band members passed, and so they, kind of called it, which totally understandable, respectable. They got 2 albums, but same thing, like just this really unique style of hardcore. There, it is. Time and Pressure is a little faster, a little heavier, but it's very melodic, and it's definitely worth listening to. But what the point that I'm getting at is when I listened to Interpersonal and I found out they were from St. Louis with all these other bands, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense because
I gotcha.
it's not pop punk. Like it is pop punk, but it's not pop punk.
Right.
It's not emo, but it kind of is emo, but
Mhm.
you can still hear the hardcore influences. And I don't know. When I listened to them, it took me back to feel like I was a like 10, 12-year-old kid in the basement with my older brother, listening to this kind of music. This is 100% the kind of music that got me into the heavier stuff that I'm into now. And it's just, I don't know, not a lot of bands can do that.
No, for sure. And the biggest band that actually comes out of St. Louis is Story of the Year, who I just caught on their 20
Okay, well
year.
that's okay, but that's a freaking great call out because you can totally hear that, right?
Yeah,
That is such a good band. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what's going to be interesting in like learning more about these guys is it's like with that big of a band coming from your town, coming from your scene, how big of an influence did they play on you? Like I'm super curious about that. I saw when we were looking at this, they posted a bunch of pictures and stuff, and they were at a record store and they were holding like Every Time I Die vinyls and like actual hardcore, heavy stuff. I
Yeah.
think I found an interview with the guitarist who was talking about like a black metal band that he had been listening to. Like these guys feel very similar to us in the
Right.
terms of you listen to everything, right? If it's part of the scene, if it had some sort of screaming, some heavy parts to it, we were probably listening to it.
Yeah.
But then they're playing this alternate rock, emo, pop
Pop
punk, like
punk. Yeah.
you just kind of encompasses everything. And it's like, yeah, like that's what I vibe to, like this is the stuff that I turn on in the car that I
Yeah.
like to drive around, to sing with, to just, if we were hanging out, you could have this on in the background, just
Sure.
playing, like it's just good, easy to listen to music and it's super solid. And for only at this point, something like 50 to 100 monthly listeners, like this is going to be a band that potentially has an opportunity to move up.
I think so.
So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be super interesting.
So they've got 2 albums. They have an EP that was in 2020, and that one's definitely more pop punk sounding, right? You definitely hear the more like straight pop punk riffs. It's a lot faster. They actually do scream in that one. I don't feel like their later album you hear the screaming very much, but this one did have some screams. But
I don't know if there's any screams in the second
I don't
one.
think I
I
don't think
might be
I
wrong
think
about that, but
yeah, I don't think there is. I will say though that like it was good, but nothing really like super stood out to me, right?
yeah,
But it's like this like young band first album. It's a good album for first album, which if people listen to us, they know how we feel about bands when they have a
sure.
good first album, right? So that should be a good sign for these guys. But their next album, Inner Visions, comes out in 2022, so last year. And yeah, it's just that super unique sound. It's not as pop punky, but there's still some songs that have a little faster tempo that feel more pop punky, but like Faceless Heart is such a good song.
It's a way good song. And the way that they go from Bless All Your Graces, that kind of opening intro into Faceless Heart, I think Faceless Heart actually calls back Bless All Your Graces. I think they say that line in the song
Oh,
if
cool.
I heard them right. So it's
Yeah.
kind of it's almost like those two kind of go together and they bleed together very well. So it's a really cool way to open this EP. And then I really did like Pavement. I thought that was a really good song. So I thought that those like the way that it's good, you know.
Yeah.
There's definitely growth and progression from the first one.
Yeah. And so anyone that listens to us, go check out this band and tell us what you think, because I'm interested to see what people kind of compare this to. Or I think the Armor for Sleep one is a pretty good comparison. I think Story of the Year is actually a super good call out. I think that's really cool. They're maybe not as like heavy. It's a little
Right.
more on the like emo side of it. One band, and this is actually why I went back and listened to these guys, was the new Crime in Stereo album.
Okay.
You kind of get that same feel for it too, where yeah, it's not a straight pop punk, it's not a straight hardcore. It kind of bleeds the two. And I think this is why you asked us in the chat too. But like older Koyo songs,
Yeah,
right? Is kind of where I was feeling some
exactly.
comparisons.
Like, and that's exactly what it was. I started to listen to these guys. And I was like, I got the same feel listening to Koyo that I got with these guys. Like, how do I place them? You know, because they could go in so many different areas that I think it would be cool to see these guys on a post-hardcore bill. I think it'd be cool to see these guys on a pop punk bill. Like they could go on
Yeah,
different bills and I'd be satisfied seeing them there. We've talked about times where I've have felt like bands have been misplaced on bills and these guys have enough of a variance in their music to be able to go on to different things,
sure.
which is cool. So
Yeah,
my
no,
question for
exactly.
you, what would you like to see from them next? Would you like to see them lean more heavily into kind of the pop punk, get a little bit faster? Do you want them to slow it down, more go towards that post hardcore feel? Because they're kind of 1 foot in each lane right now.
Yeah. I personally would like to see him go more towards the post-hardcore sound.
I think I
I
would
feel like,
too.
yeah, I feel like the pop punk sound, I feel like that's a lot harder right now because it's pretty saturated. There's a lot of bands doing it. But I feel like these guys have a really good shot to hit some nostalgia, kind of like it did with us, right?
Yeah.
I feel like so there's a band that I think of, and honestly, if anyone can remember this band and like show me proof that you remember it, there might be a free shirt somewhere in there for
Oh
you.
my gosh, this is gonna be a terrible call out.
Did you ever? No, did you ever listen to Cauterized?
Oh no.
Okay, that's like one of the first bands my older brother like introduced me to.
Oh really?
Really interesting band, but that's kind of how I felt about these guys. Is I feel like there's a really cool nostalgia kickback on a lot of people our age or older, and that are going to listen to this and be like, "Yep, this is a sound I haven't heard in a long time, but I'm very fond of it and I want to keep listening to it."
Yeah.
I
Yep.
also think there's going to be a newer generation that are going to listen to it and be like, "This is new to me," right?
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people are doing this sound right now, especially people that come from the hardcore scene.
I think that there's more upcoming bands who are starting to bleed these lines because I had mentioned to you another band called Rosecrest that I want to say they're out of Ohio, another smaller band, but I got kind of the same vibes from those guys as these guys. I think they started around the same time. So I'm wondering if we're starting to see that cycle happen where
Cool,
some of that early 2000s, late 90s kind of feel is
right?
starting to creep back in. I wonder if we're going to get a new wave of this style of music.
And here's the thing. Here's why I think that's so cool is because I love bands like Citizen. I love bands like Movements. Sometimes though, that music's too slow and a little too depressing.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys are the perfect gap. It's like you were saying. It's still music like a Citizen or Movements that I can listen to when I'm just kind of chilling out. But it's also not like a
Keeps
like
your heart rate
oh
elevated a little bit.
exactly yeah. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say like I don't feel like it's raining. Like I'm
Yeah.
not depressed listening to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just good, like cool, all like rock. I don't know what you call it, but it's just a good feeling of like I can listen to this and not like be going through a crisis like a Citizen,
Yeah.
but also not be like, oh, I'm gonna go, run through my wall like some of the other bands. And so it's I don't know. Yeah, I think we've kind of over beaten this horse dead, but I just want to make it very clear it's a very unique, fun, cool sound. So
Yeah, for sure. And I love like what I want to hear is like how other people interpret this too. Like part of why we're doing this is I'm curious at the way that other people will listen to this and start to describe things. Because I want to hear a band where you just said like cauterize and be like, oh man, like yeah, you hit the nail on the head kind of thing. So
for
I'm
sure,
curious about that.
for
But
sure.
yeah,
So
interpersonal. Check them
yeah,
out
check them out. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but we might be talking about them again. So
for sure. Yeah, I was going to call out their social medias, but I don't have them right pulled up. So sorry about
here,
that.
I think I have theirs. So how do you
I
see that on Instagram?
I
I'm
want to
such
say
an old man,
I
dude.
just I want to say it's interpersonal mo because it's from Missouri.
Well, I wish I could tell. Let's look about this account. Okay. Joined in 2019. I'm such an old freaking man, dude. I don't know how to see any of this crap. What does that do? No, that's not what I wanted. Okay, if anyone knows how to see this, let me know.
Yeah, we're
Look,
cutting all this out.
if you look up, yeah, I know. If you look up interpersonal music on Instagram, I'm sure you'll find them. So
Yes. Yep. You'll
they've
find
got
them.
a Twitter, they've got stuff on YouTube, Facebook, I
And
think
TikTok.
even. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So check them
check
out.
them out for sure.
Dope.
All
Band
right,
number
so
two.
who did you pick then?
Cool. Well, we're going to go from something where it's hard to categorize to something that's just straightforward. So, Pure Bliss out of New York. Straightforward hardcore.
Yeah.
Like, it's beatdown hardcore. Again, these guys are newer. I want to say they started in 2021, I believe. And they've got 3 EPs currently. The first one was just like a 3-song EP. Then I think it was a 5 or 6. And then the last one was a 6. Man, like I heard these guys, the last EP they put out, The Age of Judgment, is just heavy
Yeah.
and just in your face, aggressive, beatdown style hardcore album. And it is just solid. So, what do you think about Pure Bliss?
I liked them. I thought they were really good. Their album art on The Age of Judgment is freaking awesome.
The Executioner style?
Executioner with the axe, yeah. There's really cool stuff going on in New York right now. So I'm really excited to see these kind of bands coming out of there. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't listen to the a second of grief, a life of regret EP very much. I listened
Okay.
more to the Age of Judgment EP.
Yeah.
But super solid, man. The first song, No Uncertain Terms,
Yeah.
nasty.
And like,
just
that
nasty.
that's the stuff that I want to hear on like a beatdown style album. In no uncertain terms, I will effing end you.
Yeah,
Like, that is what everyone rushes forward for, grabs the mic, sings with the vocalist, and just swings hard for. So
yeah,
this is like the style of music where it's just going to be an aggressive, fun show. And honestly, like part of the reason I got onto these guys is because the bulb was rolling through. And this would be a sick band on a Zabulba show.
for sure. One thing I love about this scene is that people go hard for bands, like even if they're small. Because I've seen some of their clips of them playing live, and it's a war zone, dude.
Yeah.
And that says a lot, right? That says a lot about the band. That says a lot about the scene. It says a lot about what you're singing about and stuff. So, yeah, it looked like a war zone, which is super impressive. I saw that they opened or were on the bill for a Madball show.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's like, I mean, it's got to be like playing with your heroes, you know? That's
For
insane.
sure, especially coming out of New York. And then I saw that they played with No Bragging Rights in the Mouth for War when those guys rolled through, which if you guys have listened, like we love No Bragging Rights and Mouth for War. That last album was
Wild.
awesome. So
Yeah.
good. So like, yeah, no, I think that these guys have a chance to probably start touring depending on what's going on with the members. I think they've had a little bit of turnover. They switched, I want to say, guitarists and drummers between their second EP and the last one. So, second EP, A Second of Grief, A Life of Regret, to The Age of Judgment. I think they switched guitarist and drummer. You said you didn't really listen to A Second of Grief. Why? I mean, just timing wise, or like what didn't catch you about that one?
It wasn't really anything against the album. It's just, I don't know. If I was going to listen to them and listen to a beatdown album, I was just going to listen to the most recent one.
For sure.
The songs were good. I'd no issue with the songs. Yeah, I mean, the good thing is you can get through both of these pretty quick. So it's not like it's my fault for not listening to both of
No,
them
no.
that much, right? But I did listen to Age of Judgment more.
And it's fine. And honestly, A Second Grief, A Life of Regret, like if I had just heard this album, I probably wouldn't have caught on to him as much as I did listening to Age of Judgment, because it is a much more faster metalcore style album.
It's
Like
way
that.
more chaotic.
Yes.
It's way more chaotic sounding. Yeah.
Yes. It's faster. There's more riffs. Like it's not just straight beatdown like the Age of Judgment really is. I still liked it. I thought that the song Trauma Bond and
Yeah.
then the title track, A Second of Grief, A Life of Regret, I thought both of those were just solid, solid songs. But Age of Judgment, like for me, like I want to see these guys with Kubla Khan. And like they've been like tagging like a Kubla Khan, they've been tagging a Tsunami like on their posts and stuff like that. Those are perfect bands for
Yeah.
these guys to play with. And that is exactly like what I'd want to see from these guys. The song The Age of Judgment, again, just great, great stuff. But these guys are coming out of Syracuse. Like they're coming from some of the cornerstones of metalcore and Earth Crisis.
Yeah.
And then down the
Which,
road, you have Buffalo. And we all know what the Buffalo scene is with Snapcase, It Dies Today, Every Time
every
I
time I die.
Die.
Yeah.
Like this whole area is just like it's a metalcore, hardcore mecca. It feels like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of my favorite hardcore bands come out of the Northeast. I will say though that it is interesting to see how they start out with a more metalcore, chaotic, Earth Crisis Converge type sounding album, which I'm sure leans more heavily into the influences that they're used to from their scene, right? And
Right.
then they switch to a more beat down, tsunami type album. So bands change. They're obviously young, they're new. Like it's gonna take a couple EPs before they figure out exactly like what they want to do and stuff and what clicks. But
So these guys did an interview with No Echo. So shout out to No Echo, first of all. But Brandon, their vocalist, you can catch him on TikTok. He's actually got a solid TikTok following. He's a pretty funny guy. He goes as snack listed on TikTok. But he said, we kind of wanted to dumb it down for this release. If you want to put it into simple terms, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to make fun, moshy songs at this point. We just want minimal amounts of filler and take what we're good at and utilize it to make some heavy songs.
cool.
So, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Right?
And I feel like when bands can get to that point and that attitude, that's when they really start to take off, which is probably what's going to happen to these guys. When you figure out like, this is what we do. This is what we do good. This is what we're going to lean into. These are our strengths. It's also fun for us to just have freaking insane animals out there hitting each other while we're playing. Like, there you go. Like now you're hitting your stride and now you start to make it to the next level,
Yeah, one of my favorite things I've heard from an artist recently is I was listening to the interview with Mugshot when they were on the Gaza podcast, and the guitarist just said, "I make music for a live performance. Like if the part doesn't feel good to be played live, I'm gonna cut it out of the song."
Hmm.
That's what this album feels like to me.
Yeah.
This album was meant to be heard live. And we said this on the Kubla Khan episode. There are bands who are doing so much more with so much less than some of these like technical bands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just fun. It's just fun, heavy, moshy beatdown. So
do you feel like that's going to hit a wall? Do you feel like that beatdown's going to run its course? That would be the only thing that I'd worry about. I mean, I'm less worried about these guys because you hear their first EP and you're like, all right, they can stretch, right?
yeah.
But do you worry about like a band that's like, hey, I'm gonna like in this day and age, I'm gonna go the beatdown route?
I do. Like, to be honest, I hope that these guys, if they're going to continue, they make a big effort to get on like a bigger tour. Like, I think that that's what's going to make Pure Bliss really step up is you got to get on a 20 show bill. You know, you got to tour, you got to get your name out there because I think seeing these guys live, like you said, we saw some clips. People are going hard for them in their local scene. So if you can get that same crowd reaction on a 20 stop tour or something like that, I think that these guys can make a name for themselves.
I wonder what the attitude is like though up in the Northeast. Do you feel like you have to go like this big tour, or is it just, hey, let's just drive around to a few different, like you're from Syracuse, but then you can go play in like 30 different places within 30 miles of like New York, Philly,
And to be
Boston,
honest, I bet the crowds are going to be way more wild at those shows than a lot of like some of the other stops you'll probably hit. So if
Yeah,
like that's what you want from a band, sure. Like if you want to actually tour, if you want to go, and Tsunami's touring the world at this point, if you want to make it to
right.
that point, they're going to have to do some sort of actual tour sometime soon to get their name out there a little
Yeah.
bit more.
I mean, playing with Madball sure helps.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And we might be seeing that now, right? I mean, when was that Madball show? I don't think it was like
No, I think it was
super
probably
long
like
ago.
last year or something. Maybe it was
August?
this year.
No, September 6th.
Oh, so it was pretty recent.
Yeah. So you start making connections like that in a band like this. I'm telling you, a band like this starts to play shows. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to see these guys, like I said, make a little bit of a tour because you're asking if Beatdown will run its course. A Beatdown show is always going to be fun.
yeah, that's true.
Like whether or not you're going to be putting this on all day long in your car driving around, that's interpersonal, right?
Right.
That's not pure bliss. At least for me, in my opinion, like you can only listen to so much beatdown so often before like you're just like, okay, I want to see this live now, but there's a lot of other stuff that I'm going to
Right.
drive around listening to. But I really like this one. Like I thought it was a great album. So I'm stoked to see what these guys have going on. I would expect these guys. I think they said they have recording time at the beginning of next year as well.
Okay.
So we're going to see what comes of Pure Bliss, but just knowing where they come from, like I think that these guys can make a name for themselves.
Yeah, I agree. It's a cool band. Cool band. Their shows look wild. So
And
definitely
again,
check them out.
follow them on social media. I know they're on Instagram. I know they're on Twitter or X. And then again, vocalist Brandon is pretty big on TikTok as Snack Listed. So, but yeah,
Cool.
man. Couple of fun bands, couple of different bands,
Couple of
which was
different
cool.
bands. Yeah, which honestly, I feel like that's what's such a cool part about this scene is you can have musical whiplash.
Yep.
Even the guys from Interpersonal, on their social media, I saw that they were at like a beatdown show last weekend.
Yeah.
And so that's what's all this is about. You don't have to, it's not a one trick pony. You guys can like multiple genres of music. It's okay.
Right.
We can go from a pop punk band to a beatdown band to an emo band, and it's okay. It's okay.
Right. Which, maybe some of our listeners don't agree with that, but we're here for you. This is a safe space if you want that. So
yeah.
I know you just think before we hopped on, you were saying you hit the Trolls movie.
I did. We went and saw the Trolls movie. It was very interesting.
So we saw it.
I don't do enough acid to get that movie. Is all
Okay. So this is exactly what I was going to say. Is there a more adult movie packaged in a kid's movie format than this movie?
I don't know, dude.
Like I was trying to think when they're like flying through space time and all the different colors and the different animations and stuff happening.
Well, there's that weird blue guy with the three eyes that's carrying them.
Yeah.
What am I looking at?
Yeah. I leaned over to my sister-in-law's boyfriend. And I was like, dude, could you even imagine right now if you were tripping? And he just started laughing because it's like, no, like it's unreal. But what do you think overall? Good movie?
Yeah, I mean it was fine. The music was fun. Oh yeah, my kids loved it, dude.
Yeah.
My kids were like almost wanting to get up and dance for a lot of the songs and stuff. And I was super bummed because like people hyped up the movie. Josh did as well about NSYNC coming back, but they were only in for the last like 5 minutes with one song, and I was like, that's stupid. They should have been in more.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife
What'd you
was
think of
pretty
it?
bummed about that. Same. So we actually got lucky. We took my kids out of school a couple hours early because my in-laws were in town to go see this. And when we went, we were literally the only people in the theater.
Oh,
It
nice.
was just us. So when you
Yeah.
say your kids almost got up, my kids were running laps, dancing, cartwheels, the whole
Love
10
it.
yards, kind of 9
Yeah.
yards kind of thing. So it was a bunch of fun. It was a ton of fun. Like if you don't have kids, probably don't be that weird adult kind
Oh,
of thing.
there were like the people sitting across the aisle from us were just, I wouldn't say adults, but they were probably college kids, at least they might have been seniors at least. Like
Okay.
at the youngest, they were seniors. They weren't like young people, but they were just there watching it.
If you're breaking 30, all right. If you're breaking 30, no
I don't think they're
kids.
that old.
Yeah.
Wait till it
Don't
comes out on DVD. That
yeah,
was,
don't be that weird person. Like I know that there's a couple NSYNC fanatics who are way past their prime who are probably stuck in that theater
sure.
right now, kind of thing.
I love all the like callbacks to the boy band names.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
I
funny.
thought that was hilarious. They did a really good job with that.
Some of the
So
jokes though, I was just like, man, I got me and my wife looked over at each other. We're just like, man, I'm glad my kids don't get that.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. An adult movie package in a kid's format, like, yeah. No, for
For
sure.
sure. It's good though.
Yeah.
So
But no, man, this has been fun.
I'm glad that we're doing these segments about, these local bands because it's just fun. I feel like sometimes you get caught up with all the like big bands and stuff like that, but you lose a little bit of like the spirit of what all this is about, you know?
Right.
And it's like we get to now live vicariously through these other people that are actually living the dream that we didn't do, So
I mean, this is what our upbringing was, sitting around on MySpace and record stores, just looking for new music.
yeah,
Like, this is what we loved. And this is a way for us to do it again. So I'm really excited for it. I'm stoked for it. If you have recommendations, send them out to us. If you're a band, tag us, add us.
yeah,
Like, that's how we found these guys is they were followers of our social medias. And so I think that that's the easiest way. We do check pretty much everyone who follows and see what's going
all
on.
12 of them. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But listen, we're small right now. Now's the time to get in, right?
Hey, time to reach out to those bots on Twitter and see if they're real or not.
Oh man, I'm about to hit up every Russian bot. So.
There's got to be Russian hardcore. Maybe not right now, but
Slaughter to Prevail. It's
Oh,
deathcore,
are they the
but
ones that do that really weird, like it sounds like a pig's getting gutted?
yeah,
Like that?
but exactly. Alex Terrible, man.
Yeah,
That dude.
that's some of the worst stuff I've ever heard in my entire life. And so I'm not surprised that it's from Russia.
Listen, Demolisher is heavy as balls, dude.
I'd rather not.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll be connected with Josh later on in this week. We got some good old metalcore coming up with For the Fallen Dreams. Actually, pretty excited about that. So
Yeah, it'll be good. So,
okay,
but
man.
yeah, all right, man. Thanks. This is cool.
Peace.
Bye.